This is Neverland, the currently for sale former home and playground of music icon Michael Jackson.
Michael Jackson disappeared from the spotlight, only to return and reveal secrets that shook everyone. From the magic of his music to the haunting shadows of Neverland, Michael's life wasn't what it seemed. Let's find out how, as he battled the media, loneliness, and his own demons, the truth behind his disappearance slowly began to surface. The rise and fall of the King of Pop. The world knows Michael Jackson as the King of Pop, the artist who shaped music and left an impact that cannot be overstated. But beyond the moonwalk and the record-smashing albums, there is another story, one filled with scandal, betrayal, and immense pressure that never seemed to let up. This legend in every sense was also a man whose life turned into a spectacle for everyone to dissect. And behind the spotlight lay a truth that would change everything we thought we knew about him. The icon's rise to fame was nothing short of incredible. He came from a small house on Jackson Street in Gary, Indiana. It was a cramped life with 10 kids, a steelworker father who did not know how to be gentle, and a mother trying her best to keep the family afloat. Among those kids, the young performer stood out. Off stage, he was shy, almost like he wanted to disappear. But once in the spotlight, he transformed into something entirely different. It was almost magical. People knew they were witnessing something rare even when he was just 6 years old. The household was not about fun or play, it was about survival through music. The patriarch Joseph cared only about results. Practice was not optional, and it was not fun either. It was grueling, sometimes lasting until their feet ached and their voices gave out. Especially for the youngest, mistakes were unacceptable. Joseph's relentless approach made sure of that. But even with all the pressure, the boy's talent shone brightly. And soon enough, the Jackson 5 went from local talent shows to signing with Motown Records. That was the beginning of everything. In 1969, the Jackson 5 exploded onto the music scene. Their first single, I Want You Back, was an instant hit. His voice had a soulfulness and vulnerability that felt far beyond his 11 years. And on stage, he was not just singing, he had a presence that was impossible to ignore. It was all instinct, not just rehearsed moves. Songs like ABC and I'll Be There made the Jackson 5 a household name. But even then, it was clear that the youngest member was something special. The spotlight was slowly shifting from the group to him. His brothers seemed content with the group's success, but not this performer. Fame was not enough. He wanted more. By 1971, he was already releasing solo tracks, and by 1979, he dropped Off the Wall. That album was a game changer. Songs like Don't Stop Till You Get Enough and Rock With You were fresh, energetic, and purely his own. It was the first time he stepped out from his brother's shadow, showing the world that he was not just another pop star, he was something else entirely. Then came Thriller. If Off the Wall was a spark, Thriller was an unstoppable blaze. Released in 1982, it did not just succeed, it shattered records. Tracks like Billie Jean and Beat It became cultural landmarks, and the Thriller music video was something the world had never seen before. It was 13 minutes of zombies, horror, and iconic dance moves. MTV played it non-stop, and everyone was hooked. In 1983, the entertainer introduced the world to the moonwalk while performing Billie Jean at the Motown 25th anniversary show. It was one of those moments that left everyone in awe. He glided backward across the stage, seemingly defying gravity. That performance sealed his fate as a global icon. By the mid-80s, he was at the top of the world, selling out stadiums, dominating the charts, and making every music video a major event. But behind the glitter and the screaming fans, things were beginning to unravel. The kind of fame he had comes with a heavy cost, and the cracks were already showing. By the mid-80s, the artist seemed to have everything. He was the most recognizable face in the world, with millions in album sales and fans who worshipped him. But who was he really? Fame had made him larger than life, but it also trapped him. Behind the strict upbringing of the Jackson family, he had never been allowed to just be a kid. His father, Joseph, did not want kids. He wanted performers, and he was molded to fit that role perfectly. As his solo career took off, the pressure only grew. Every move he made was under the microscope. His relationships, his mannerisms, even the way he looked was up for public debate. By the late 1970s, people noticed changes in his appearance. His skin was lighter, his nose was slimmer, his jawline sharper. Rumors started, maybe it was just a few surgeries, or maybe it was something more. By the mid-80s, those whispers turned into shouts. He said he had vitiligo, a condition that causes patches of skin to lose color. Medical reports would later confirm this, but the media did not care. They ran stories about him bleaching his skin, about him wanting to change who he was. The entertainer remained private, rarely speaking out, and the silence only made the rumors grow. Some saw him as a man struggling with his identity, while others defended him passionately. It was not just his skin. Over the years, his face seemed to change completely. It was not just cosmetic surgery. It was like he was trying to become someone else. Every change made him more mysterious, and the world could not get enough of trying to figure out who he really was. For him, the scrutiny was suffocating. He once talked about looking in the mirror and not recognizing himself. He wore the single glove, the fedora, and the sequin jackets like armor, trying to protect himself from the harsh world that demanded he be perfect. As Michael's fame grew, the pressure and loneliness only deepened. Neverland, a dream turned nightmare. The fame and scrutiny isolated Michael Jackson further. Even the people closest to him seemed to have their own agendas. Friends turned into opportunists, and the pop icon retreated to his own world. He built Neverland Ranch, a massive estate that was supposed to be his refuge. It was filled with amusement rides, zoo animals, and everything he thought could bring back the joy of childhood. But even there, the world would not leave him alone. The media branded him Wacko Jacko, and it stuck. They ridiculed everything he did, from his pet chimpanzee, Bubbles, to his love for theme parks. It did not matter if these things brought him happiness. To the rest of the world, they were just proof that he was losing touch with reality. And the entertainer, whether consciously or not, leaned into that narrative, blurring the line between his true self and the character that the media had painted him to be. Neverland Ranch became both a dream and a nightmare for the performer. Built in the late 1980s, it was supposed to be a paradise where he could live out his lost childhood. Inspired by Peter Pan, it symbolized everything the star felt he had missed: freedom, innocence, and fun. He invited children, families, and underprivileged kids to enjoy the rides and zoo. It was his way of giving back, of creating happiness for others. But as the 1990s rolled in, whispers about Neverland began to spread. In 1993, the first child molestation allegations surfaced, and Neverland became the center of the controversy. What once seemed like a magical escape now looked suspicious. The media had a field day. His relationships with young boys became the focal point, and sleepovers at Neverland were painted in the worst light. He defended himself, insisting that it was innocent, that he only wanted to give children a place to feel loved and safe. But the damage was done. He settled the 1993 case out of court, but the world never looked at him the same way again. In 2005, the allegations returned, and this time the musician went to trial. It was a spectacle. Former employees spoke against him, others defended him, and the world watched as his life was put on display. He was acquitted, but his image was shattered. Neverland, once full of joy, became empty. The rides were dismantled, the animals were gone, and by the time of his death in 2009, Neverland was just a shell of its former self. To some, Neverland was proof of his innocence, a symbol of the childlike joy he always wanted to experience. To others, it was a place filled with dark secrets. The complex, contradictory nature of the artist was reflected in Neverland, and it became a part of his story that people still debate today. His relationship with the media was a constant source of pain. They dubbed him Wacko Jacko in the 1980s, and that label followed him for years. The media painted him as strange, turning every eccentricity into something sinister. They wrote stories based on rumors, like the one about him sleeping in an oxygen chamber to stay young. He later said that many of these tales were either exaggerated or completely made up, but by then, it did not matter. The press knew that weird stories about the pop star sold papers, and they pushed that image for all it was worth. This treatment took a toll on him. The media reduced him to a caricature, stripping away his humanity. They ignored his talent and achievements in favor of sensational headlines. He was a brilliant performer, but to many, he was just a spectacle. And for years, the icon seemed to accept that bad press was still press, and maybe it was better than being forgotten. But by the early 2000s, the weight of it all was crushing him. The tabloids created a version of him that many people could not separate from reality. For some, he was a misunderstood artist who was unfairly targeted. For others, he was a joke. Even those who were close to him did not always know what was true and what was tabloid fiction. The constant scrutiny left him guarded and paranoid. He often said that the press was out to destroy him, and interviews showed a man who was careful with his words, always afraid of giving them more ammunition. His relationships were another part of his life that everyone wanted to know about. His first marriage to Lisa Marie Presley in 1994 shocked everyone. Here was the king of pop marrying the daughter of the king of rock and roll. It was almost too perfect. But the media doubted the authenticity of the marriage, calling it a publicity stunt to improve his image after the 1993 allegations. Lisa Marie defended their relationship, saying it was based on love. But the constant public attention took its toll, and they divorced in 1996. Michael's search for love and family added new challenges to his life: fatherhood, finances, and final comeback. That same year, Michael Jackson married Debbie Rowe, a nurse who had worked for his dermatologist. Their relationship seemed more about practicality than romance. Debbie gave birth to two of the entertainer's children, Prince and Paris. Critics said the marriage was purely a means to have kids, but those who knew the pop star said he was a devoted father, despite the unconventional nature of the relationship. His third child, Blanket, was born in 2002, and his mother's identity was never revealed, adding more mystery to the artist's already complicated personal life. The performer's parenting style was seen as strange by many. He often masked his children's faces when they were in public to protect them from the paparazzi. To the world, it was just another example of his eccentricity, but to the musician, it was about keeping his kids safe from the kind of scrutiny that had followed him his whole life. Despite his efforts, his children grew up under the shadow of his fame. After his death, Paris became more vocal, talking about her father and the struggles they faced as a family. The icon's relationships extended to his family, particularly his siblings. The Jacksons had a complicated dynamic, filled with both love and tension. He often spoke highly of his sister Janet, but there were rumors of feuds and disputes. Being the most famous member of an already famous family came with its own challenges, and the superstar's need for independence often clashed with his family's expectations. While the legendary performer tried to maintain some semblance of a personal life, his financial troubles were becoming impossible to ignore. He had made hundreds of millions of dollars from his music, tours, and merchandise, but by the early 2000s, he was drowning in debt. Neverland Ranch, the crown jewel of his spending, was costing him millions to maintain. It was more than just a home. It was a full-fledged amusement park, complete with rides, animals, and a full staff. Keeping it all running was draining his finances. The artist's spending habits were notorious. He was not just buying necessities, he was buying everything he wanted, and he wanted a lot. His shopping sprees were legendary, and he spent lavishly on art, furniture, and collectibles. His famous purchase of the ATV music catalog, which included the rights to songs by the Beatles, was a smart business move, but it was not enough to save him from financial ruin. He used the catalog as collateral for loans, and by the time he died, he was nearly $500 million in debt. The entertainer's financial struggles came to a head in 2008 when Neverland went into foreclosure. He managed to transfer ownership to a holding company to avoid losing it entirely, but the writing was on the wall. He needed a comeback, and the This Is It tour was supposed to be it. 50 shows in London were planned, and it was going to be his return to the spotlight, a chance to clear his debts and remind everyone of his talent. But his health was failing, and the pressure was enormous. He wanted to prove himself, but the demands were too much, and in the end, he never got the chance. The pop legend died in June 2009, and the world mourned. His sudden death brought his financial troubles to light, but it also sparked a renewed interest in his music. The same world that had torn him down now celebrated him. His estate, once in shambles, began to recover as his music, memorabilia, and brand brought in millions. In his final years, the star was a man struggling to keep it all together. He was isolated, distrustful, and battling health issues that left him weak. His dependency on prescription drugs had grown, and those close to him knew that he was in a fragile state. Despite his best efforts to continue creating and planning his comeback, the weight of his life was too much. The king of pop's money in 2025 is still a big deal, but let's be real. It's a mix of genius and people trying to squeeze every dollar they can from his name. The music icon is still making millions of dollars years after he passed away, and it's not just because his music is still catchy. His estate has turned his fame into a full-on business, and there's a lot going on behind the scenes to keep those dollars rolling in. First off, his old songs are like money machines. They're classics, and they're still getting played, streamed, and bought. The estate keeps releasing special versions of his albums, making them fancier or adding in some unreleased tracks to get fans excited again. People love anything new from the artist, and this means more money from sales and streaming. Basically, every time you listen to Thriller or Billie Jean, someone's making money off it. But they're not just relying on the old stuff. By 2025, the estate is probably pulling in money from all kinds of collaborations. You know how brands love a famous face? Well, his image is still iconic, so it's slapped on merchandise, maybe even appearing in ads or shows. There is always some big brand looking to cash in on his cool factor, and people are still buying anything with his name on it. Plus, they might be diving into the whole NFT thing. People are really into these digital collectibles, and the estate could definitely get into that game, selling unique digital moments, like iconic dance moves or concert clips. It's all about keeping up with what is trending, and digital stuff is where a lot of the money is at right now. Imagine buying a digital moonwalk that is yours alone. That is what they are probably betting on. The family also likes to play up his charitable side, which is not just about being nice. It is a way to keep his image shiny and positive. Sure, he did a lot for charity when he was alive, but continuing those efforts also keeps people feeling good about him, which means more people buying his stuff. The performer's life was complicated. He was a musical genius, a performer who changed the face of pop music forever. His influence is undeniable. Artists across genres cite him as an inspiration, and his impact is still felt in music, dance, and culture today. But his life was also marked by scandal, legal battles, and questions that may never have clear answers. The entertainer was a man who wanted to spread joy but often could not find it for himself. He was a legend who became a prisoner of his own fame. In the end, perhaps his greatest gift was not just his music or his incredible performances. Maybe it was the reminder that even the biggest stars are, at their core, human, flawed, complex, and capable of both greatness and mistakes. The last pop king returns. Michael's life was never ordinary. He grew up under the tight grip of his father, Joe Jackson. Joe was no joke. He used a belt to keep things in order, which meant Michael's childhood was a mix of tough discipline and his mom Catherine's warmth. Not exactly your classic happy family story. And now, years later, after everything, the fame, the scandals, the alleged sightings, we're here again, trying to piece together whether this strange encounter is just a trick or something more. Michael's beginnings were anything but easy. His dad, a strict guy who believed in discipline above all else, contrasted with his mom's kindness. Catherine wanted to be a country singer, but ended up working at Sears, doing everything she could to make her kids' dreams come true. One day, Michael even got this mysterious letter, something about secrets from his past, like a movie plot but in real life. Could all those years of strict rules, childhood stardom, and hidden secrets have somehow brought us here today? Seeing him again? Michael wasn't born into fame. He worked for it, starting in the mid-60s when he joined his brothers in a group that became the Jackson 5. Picture little Michael, just a kid, singing My Girl and dancing his heart out at local talent shows. This was the beginning of something huge. Music wasn't just a hobby, it became his escape route, his serious career. But with fame came sacrifices. From 1966 to 1968, the Jackson 5 were touring in what people called the Chitlin Circuit. It wasn't glamorous, rough venues, long hours, but it toughened them up. In 1967, they had their big moment at the Apollo Theater in Harlem, winning an amateur competition. This victory set them on a path that led straight to the top, and by 1970, they were releasing hit after hit with Motown Records. The hits kept coming, and Michael's star kept rising. By the early 70s, he'd become more than just a member of the Jackson 5. He was the star. His solo career began to shine, with hits like Ben, yes, the one about the rat, making it clear he wasn't just another pop star. He was different. He kept pushing, kept experimenting. Who can forget the robot dance he did on Soul Train and Dancing Machine? It wasn't just a dance, it was a moment that defined a generation. But fame had its downsides. Motown's tight control started feeling like a trap, and in 1975, the group left Motown and joined Epic Records, renaming themselves the Jacksons. Michael began to step into his own, writing songs like Shake Your Body Down to the Ground. His move to New York City in 1977 to work on The Wiz was another pivotal moment. Meeting Quincy Jones during that project would change everything for him musically. By the late 70s, Michael was shifting gears. His album Off the Wall, released in 1979, was a game changer. It wasn't just music, it was a statement. He was breaking free from his teen idol image and becoming a global sensation. The album sold over 20 million copies worldwide, and Michael wasn't satisfied. He wanted more, and he knew he could get it. He made sure he had the highest royalty rate in the industry, a move that spoke volumes about his ambition. Then came Thriller. It's almost impossible to talk about pop culture without mentioning Thriller. The iconic music, the red jacket, the single white glove, it all became bigger than life. The album sold about 70 million copies, making it the best-selling album of all time. Michael was a perfectionist, and he worked relentlessly to create something that wasn't just good, it was legendary. He knew how to capture attention, how to make people watch and listen. And with the moonwalk at the Motown 25 celebration in 1983, he didn't just perform, he created a cultural landmark. Even with all his success, Michael was always surrounded by rumors about his personal life, his changing appearance, his relationships. People talked about his skin lightening, speculated whether it was a choice. In 1983, his dermatologist confirmed it was vitiligo, but by then the media had already spun their stories. Michael insisted he wasn't trying to change who he was, just dealing with a condition. Still, the whispers persisted. His creative genius never stopped, though. The 80s were filled with successes, controversies, and changes. He collaborated with big names like Freddie Mercury, worked on iconic tracks like We Are the World, and kept setting records that seemed almost untouchable. He bought the ATV Music Publishing Catalog in 1985, which included the Beatles' songs, solidifying his influence in the music industry not just as an artist, but as a powerful business figure. And then there was Neverland, his 2,700-acre property that he turned into his private wonderland. It was as much a symbol of his success as it was a reflection of his need to escape the harsh reality of fame. The King of Pop lived in a fairy tale of his own making, but the real world kept knocking on the door, with allegations and scandals always lurking in the background. Michael was a cultural icon, no doubt about it. He influenced millions with his music, his dance moves, and his humanitarian efforts. But his life wasn't just glitter and gold. It was complicated. The marriage to Lisa Marie Presley in the mid-90s, his ever-changing appearance, the accusations, the surgeries, they all painted a picture that was far from the clean-cut pop star the world first fell in love with. And then there was that bizarre rumor about him sleeping in a hyperbaric oxygen chamber to slow down aging, something he later admitted was just a publicity stunt. Michael knew how to keep people talking. Fast forward to today, and the question is still hanging in the air. Could Michael Jackson be alive? Could the King of Pop really have faked his death and lived under the radar all these years? The legend, the mystery, and the question, is he still among us? There's no easy answer, but the very fact that people still believe in the possibility says a lot about the myth that Michael Jackson has become. He was never just a man. He was a symbol, an enigma, someone who seemed to defy the rules of the ordinary world. Whether he's still out there somewhere or not, the story of Michael Jackson continues to captivate, fascinate, and divide us. And maybe that's what he wanted all along, to be remembered not just as a superstar, but as a legend whose story never truly ends. Michael's story wasn't just about the rise of a star, it was about the complexity of fame, the burdens of expectation, and the price of greatness. In the late 1980s, Michael reached the pinnacle of his career. He released Bad in 1987, an album that sold 35 million copies worldwide. The tour that followed was a spectacle like no other. It broke records in Japan, with 14 sold-out concerts drawing in 500,000 fans. In the United Kingdom, he sold out 7 nights at Wembley Stadium. His influence wasn't just musical, it was cultural. The Bad album showed a different side of Michael, confident, edgy, and ready to take on the world. Songs like Man in the Mirror and Dirty Diana showcased his depth and versatility. He wasn't just making pop hits, he was creating music that had a message. The Bad World Tour, which lasted from 1987 to 1989, set new standards for what a concert experience could be. It was during this time that Michael truly earned the title of King of Pop, but with every success came more scrutiny. Michael's appearance was changing dramatically, and the public couldn't get enough of speculating why. His nose seemed smaller, his skin lighter, and his overall look more refined. In his 1988 autobiography, Moonwalk, he admitted to having 2 nose surgeries, but rumors swirled that there was more to it. His skin condition, vitiligo, was misunderstood by many, and it became a topic of endless gossip. People questioned whether he was trying to change his identity, but Michael always maintained that he was simply dealing with a medical condition. The pressure of fame took its toll. Michael was always in the spotlight, and it seemed like every aspect of his life was up for public debate. He found solace in his work, pouring his energy into creating and performing. In 1988, he released his autobiography, Moonwalk, giving fans a glimpse into his world. He spoke about his childhood, his struggles, and his passion for music. The book became a bestseller, but it also highlighted the loneliness that came with his fame. Michael's desire to create a place where he could escape led to the creation of Neverland Ranch. It was a sprawling estate, complete with amusement rides, a zoo, and a movie theater. For Michael, Neverland was a sanctuary, a place where he could relive the childhood he felt he never had. But even in his private paradise, controversy followed. The ranch became a focal point for allegations that would haunt him for the rest of his life. In 1991, Michael released Dangerous, another groundbreaking album that combined pop, rock, and new jack swing. It was a departure from his earlier work, but it showed that Michael was always evolving, always pushing the boundaries of what pop music could be. Songs like Black or White and Remember the Time were not just hits, they were cultural events. The music video for Black or White, featuring groundbreaking visual effects and a cameo by Macaulay Culkin, became a defining moment of the early 90s. The 90s were a tumultuous time for Michael. His marriage to Lisa Marie Presley in 1994 shocked the world. The union seemed to be an attempt to show a more normal side of Michael, but the marriage was short-lived, ending in divorce after less than 2 years. Shortly after, Michael married Debbie Rowe, a nurse who had worked for his dermatologist. Together, they had 2 children, Prince and Paris. Michael's desire to be a father was evident, and he often spoke about how much his children meant to him. But the happiness of fatherhood was overshadowed by the allegations of child abuse that emerged in the early 90s. In 1993, Michael was accused of intimate violence against a 13-year-old boy. The case was settled out of court, but the damage to his reputation was done. The media frenzy was relentless, and Michael's image took a severe hit. He maintained his innocence, and his fans stood by him, but the accusations would follow him for the rest of his life. Despite the challenges, Michael continued to create. In 1995, he released History, Past, Present, and Future, Book 1, a double album that combined his greatest hits with new material. The album was deeply personal, with songs like Scream and They Don't Care About Us, reflecting his frustration with the media and the allegations against him. The album was a commercial success, selling over 20 million copies worldwide, but it also showed a darker, more introspective side of Michael. The late 90s and early 2000s were marked by more controversy and more music. Michael's third child, Blanket, was born in 2002, and Michael's love for his children was clear. He often spoke about wanting to give them the childhood he never had, but his parenting came under scrutiny, especially after the infamous incident in 2002 when he dangled Blanket over a hotel balcony in Berlin. The incident was widely criticized, and Michael later apologized, calling it a terrible mistake. In 2003, Michael faced another major challenge when he was accused of child molestation once again. The case went to trial in 2005, and the media circus that followed was unlike anything the world had seen. The trial was exhausting, and Michael's health visibly deteriorated during the proceedings. In June 2005, he was acquitted of all charges, but the damage to his reputation was irreversible. The King of Pop had been vindicated in court, but the public's perception of him was forever altered. After the trial, Michael withdrew from the public eye. He spent time in Bahrain, trying to escape the constant scrutiny. He was reportedly working on new music, but his plans remained unclear. In 2009, Michael announced This Is It, a series of 50 concerts in London that were meant to be his comeback. Fans were ecstatic, and tickets sold out almost instantly. It seemed like Michael was ready to reclaim his throne, but the world would never see those performances. On June 25, 2009, Michael Jackson died of acute propofol and benzodiazepine intoxication at his home in Los Angeles. The news shocked the world. The King of Pop was gone, and an outpouring of grief followed. Fans gathered outside his home, at Neverland, and around the world to mourn the loss of a legend. Michael's death was ruled a homicide, and his personal physician, Dr. Conrad Murray, was found guilty of involuntary manslaughter. The trial revealed the extent of Michael's dependence on prescription drugs, a tragic consequence of his relentless pursuit of perfection and the pressures of fame. His death marked the end of an era, but it also solidified his status as a cultural icon whose influence would never fade. In the years since his death, Michael's legacy has been both celebrated and scrutinized. His music continues to inspire new generations of artists, and his impact on pop culture is undeniable. The posthumous release of Michael in 2010 and Xscape in 2014 gave fans a glimpse of the music he had been working on before his death. His estate has continued to release material, ensuring that his music remains a part of the cultural conversation. Yet the allegations against him have not been forgotten. The 2019 documentary, Leaving Neverland, brought renewed attention to the accusations of abuse, with two men coming forward to share their stories. The documentary was polarizing, with some believing the allegations and others defending Michael's innocence. The controversy surrounding his legacy remains, but so does his music. Let's explore some of the wildest theories out there. Spoiler alert, none of them involve just practice and passion, cloning the King of Pop. Now this one's straight out of a sci-fi movie. Michael Jackson, so obsessed with staying young, supposedly tried cloning himself. The idea to dodge mortality and escape all the troubles that came with his fame. Michael C. Luckman, some guy from the New York Center for Extraterrestrial Research, even claimed that Michael secretly stored his DNA for future cloning projects. Some fans argue that his changing appearance was because he was experimenting with cloning, maybe even testing on himself, or that a double had taken his place long before his death. And if that's not enough, there are those who believe Michael faked his death so a clone could continue his legacy while he finally got to live in peace, far from the public eye. The random sightings of Michael in remote places only add fuel to this bizarre theory. Michael had money problems, massive ones. At one point, he was in debt to the tune of $400 million. With creditors breathing down his neck and Neverland slipping through his fingers, some think Michael did the only thing that made sense. He faked his own death. According to this theory, his death was a clever way to make money, wipe out his debt, and disappear. Look at what happened right after his death. Album sales soared, his old songs shot back up the charts, and Michael Jackson merchandise was suddenly everywhere again. If anything, dying might have been the most profitable move he ever made. Some claim he's chilling somewhere in Mexico, living a quiet life away from it all. And every time a blurry photo of a Michael lookalike pops up, people are convinced it's really him, hiding in plain sight. You've heard it all before. The Illuminati, the secret society supposedly running the world, controlling governments, celebrities, and maybe even your local supermarket. Well, some think Michael made a deal with them to reach his insane level of fame. It's said that they pulled all the strings to make him a superstar. But as he got older, Michael allegedly decided he wasn't going to dance to their tune anymore. That's when things got messy. Fans claim Michael began putting secret messages in his songs and on album covers to expose the Illuminati's grip on him. Remember the Dangerous album? Some say it's covered in hidden symbols, a call for help maybe, or a warning about who was really in charge. When Michael started ranting about record execs being evil and the system being against him, it seemed like he was trying to tell us something important. Unfortunately, the theory suggests he paid the ultimate price for speaking out, and that's why he died in 2009, mysteriously, just when he was planning his comeback tour. If you thought the Illuminati was a stretch, wait until you hear this one. Some folks believe Michael was part of a secret U.S. government plan called Operation Sedgwick. Supposedly, the goal was to control black culture by pushing certain celebrities to the top, all in a carefully orchestrated manner. Michael, of course, was their golden boy, the innocent child star, then the pop icon who kept everyone entertained, distracted, and pacified. The theory goes on to claim that President Ronald Reagan's administration used Michael's image to manipulate public perception. They didn't just want a superstar, they wanted someone to control the narrative. But Michael wasn't one to stay quiet. Toward the end, his message started to change. His This Is It tour was supposed to be more than just a concert. It was rumored to be his chance to speak out, to reveal the truth. And as you can guess, he never got that chance. Here's a theory that blends international politics with pop culture. In June 2009, just as protests in Iran were heating up over a disputed election, Michael Jackson. Coincidence? Some don't think so. They argue that Michael's death was a convenient way to divert global attention from the chaos in Iran. After all, the world stopped to mourn the king of pop, and media coverage of the protests quickly took a back seat. It's a bit of a stretch, but believers say the timing was just too perfect. Michael's passing dominated every headline, while the struggles in Iran became yesterday's news. The theory points out how powerful Michael's influence was. Even his could serve as a political smokescreen. Michael was paranoid, or maybe he had a good reason to be. He often said people were out to get him, and his daughter, Paris Jackson, even claimed her father was. Michael hinted that he knew too much, and that's why he feared for his life. According to this theory, Michael had discovered some dark secrets, either about the entertainment industry or about powerful figures, and that made him a target. Fans believe his songs carried messages about the shady dealings of the industry. The lyrics in They Don't Care About Us are often cited as proof that Michael was trying to expose something. His sudden and suspicious death is seen by some as a move by these powerful enemies to silence him before he could reveal their secrets to the world. Was Michael Jackson's death part of a bigger plan? From secret societies to hidden messages, the mysteries linger. What do you believe? Drop a comment, like, and subscribe for more.